Welcome to Night Shadows. I'm Stewart Best, where the paranormal is normal, where that which you thought you knew, you didn't, and where the future can be known if you know exactly where to look.
Well, good evening, everyone, and I think we have Stan with us. Stan, you still with us? Hello? I think Stan got dropped off. I'll have to call him back. Hi, Larry. How are you?
Oh, doing okay. Yeah, a lot of glitches these days. I know everybody I know is having problems.
Okay, I'll try him again here if we get it.
Let's try it again.
Yeah, I know. Well, typical glitches that are going on these days with computers and everything else.
Right.
How are you doing tonight, Stan?
Oh, pretty good. Pretty good for an old guy, you know.
Good. Well, we're all getting old, so it's you almost have to ask that question now.
Oh, yeah. We're doing
Larry, are you with us?
Oh, I am, and hello, Stan. Good to hear from you.
Hi, Larry. Good to hear from you. Boy, we've had a busy week with our MP Shield business.
Yeah, I got mine today.
How's that going?
What'd you say, Larry?
I got mine today, and people need to really, the way North Korea is moving, that may be necessary soon.
Hey, we were having a roundtable discussion, you know, by phone with all the staff and stuff this morning, and Tim says, you know, did you see what Kim Jong-un's doing? He's threatening and, you know, upping the game for war. It's imminent. He says, great for our business. I said, yeah, can't you just see it there? That little fat boy with these rockets is attacking, you know, Spaceship America, and the captain yells, shields!
Yes, shields up.
Shields up, yep. Get those
well,
phaser
as long as we're
ready.
talking about North Korea, what do you think is going on there?
Well, according to the North Korean, you know, press, which you can't trust, they're saying they're a year from completing their nuclear development program, and that they're still in the testing phase. But with the help of China or Pakistan or, you know, one of these, Iran maybe, they could do something really, really serious damage over here. The test they did with their long-range missile the other day did reach the altitude around 2,500 miles, but when in the reentry, it broke up down toward the end of it. Obviously, it wouldn't have had a nuclear warhead on. They're too expensive, but it does show that they're getting to the point that they can launch a big one and direct it over toward our west coast and certainly over toward Hawaii. In fact, one of my friends is moving out of Hawaii now. He's been there for quite a while, but he says, I'm not waiting for that little guy to hit us. He said, I'm coming home to the mainland.
Well, someone had a vision, I don't know who it was, that a missile came from the east and did hit Hawaii. Of course, you never know whether it's an overactive imagination or what. But
I know, but from the east or the west?
They claim from the east it came.
Well, that'd be from America, then. Are we going to bomb Hawaii?
I don't think so, but of course we don't know what Kim actually has in the way of subs.
Well, that's
either.
True. That's true. Well, we do, but they're not, you know, major nuclear-type submarines, but still, they could get out there and deliver a system. I hadn't thought about that, but yeah.
Unless they are talking about just the Far East, you know, or something like that. But that's the way it was worded from the East. So,
you know, I think
it was
I read
kind
that
of an EMP thing. They said it just knocked out the power as it cruised over.
Wow. Well, I know we've got that in our arsenal here in the States. Raytheon Corporation is one of the corporations that made them, and they're like a Tomahawk type missile, but they come towards, say, like a building with all kinds of computer gear in it and that kind of stuff, and they shoot a particular kind of microwave beam at the building, and it does an EMP local effect on all the electronics and wipes them out. So they're more, you can have a directed EMP as well as a general broadcast one, like the high altitude blast.
Okay, so if this missile then is sending out continuous signals to EMP signals, I take
it's aimed at a target and ahead of it, and then it's a sudden impulse, less than 10 nanoseconds, but a huge burst of energy at those frequencies, and it creates just a very focused EMP effect.
Well, for those who are new listeners, how is your EMP device working? Are you having a lot of sales?
Oh, at the moment, that's not the issue. We just sent out a team today. We're going to lease another 6,000 square feet of factory space to make them, because we've got a few orders. In fact, my instructions today were hold back on the promotions of the product until we can catch up.
Okay.
Amazing. I wish we had, the ability to protect every home in America, but it's just impractical to make that many in the short time remaining before breaks loose. But we're doing fine. We had a little bit of a hiccup here a couple of weeks back. Tim, my partner in this, he was in the nuclear testing lab over in Pittsburgh getting the units tested, and fell real sick. Real bad pains under his rib and everything, and he had an attack of gallstones, gallbladder. So they took him to the hospital from the testing site, and they patched him up so he could get home back into Kansas to get it taken out, which that was last week, and he's back at work. I'll tell you, he's hard to put down, but taking a painkiller when he needs it and getting in there and getting people organized. So that slowed us up a bit, and we're glad that he's back and well, and we're on to the next projects now then. So I think we'll probably do major promotions on this within about 10 days, as long as we're sure that we've got the manufacturing resources that we need. We've been hiring staff and project managers and all kinds of stuff, so it's been crazy, a crazy week. But look, one of the good things about it is when you get it tested at the Keystone Compliance Center there in Pittsburgh, they test nuclear shields for the military, for the Department of Defense. And so we got it tested by the best guys. And they just said, look, we can't get it to fail. We've never seen anything like it, in the civilian arena. This is the first time. So, Tim was very pleased about that. And it's a thing that has to be hooked up to any of your electronic devices or electrical devices, in your house through the breaker box. There's just 4 little wires that are connected inside the breaker box, and this little 6-inch by 3-inch thing is just plugged on the wall. And you might think, well, gee, that's not impressive. It's just such a small thing. How can it shield a home like that? And what it does, it senses the rise in voltage so fast that it can switch all of the power coming from the EMP to the house. It can switch that before it damages your equipment straight down into ground. It shorts it out. It just makes a short in less than a 10 billionth of a second. So we're at leading edge technology at the moment doing that, and we're quite
sounds
proud
like
of it.
You might have some military orders.
Well, that's possible too, but we're probably going to send them the plan and say make your own, because we haven't got time. I'm just teasing. I don't know, but look, we're very excited about it, and it has slowed our energy project down just a bit because all of us that are developing that have taken time off to organize various parts of this project. But we realize that if we don't get this done first, that it has the highest priority, because at least people can protect their electronics in their home, computers, fridges, all that kind of stuff, and they can also protect their solar array systems and their diesel generators that aren't hooked up at the time. All that can be protected, so that when alternate energy is available to them, if the grid goes down, they'll still have all the stuff that works. So we realize we've got to protect the stuff that works, because there are diesel generators around. There are backup power systems on the grid. So eventually power will come back. So, although we'd like to have our energy device out there in the forefront, that comes later because it's not as important.
Well, it sounds like it's moving along very fast, and it seems like events are moving along very fast. You've always had your eyes on this fellow over there in Saudi Arabia, the Crown Prince Salman, or Salman. Is that how they pronounce that?
Well, I don't know how they pronounce it. I just say Salman, because it's like the word Solomon. their name is derived from the original source of the name Solomon that was given to King Solomon, but they derive theirs from Shalmaneser the first, Shalman being Solomon.
So what's your take on what's he doing over there? He's definitely rounded up the all of what he calls corruption, shakes them down, and I don't know if he's releasing them or what's happening. But is this not kind of a warning prophetically that he is about to ascend?
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at what Paul said to the Thessalonians, he said, they asked him, has the rapture come and we miss it? And he says, has the man of sin been revealed yet? Okay, well now then, when he's revealed, if they were there and he'd been revealed, then they would have missed the rapture, is what it implies. So
right.
From that, and we see the guy being, look, I think this is the guy. I'm going to talk about him more in a second, but this Mohammed bin Salman, they call him MBS, this is a guy that, of the 6 candidates I put up on the Show Images webpage, where I discuss the each of these 6 candidates for Antichrist, number 1, the first beast. And I compare each of them across, a table there, and you can see which ones fit various parts of the prophecies that we have listed there about identifying the Antichrist. And this young Prince bin Salman, this week he was supposed to take over the reins of the Saudi government, but he hadn't done it yet. Now, even when he does, he will still be a prince and not the king, because his father, King Salman, is going to step down and let the boy run the business, the Saudi Arabia. But the king will retain his title, like Queen Elizabeth does. She's a queen in a titular title. And so technically, this guy will still be a prince even though he's running the country. And the Prince of the Covenant, that we know, he will ratify the covenant between Israel and the nations. That's the Antichrist. And this guy is a prince, not a ruler, not a king. And I looked at Bashar al-Assad of Syria. He had a number of qualifications that made him possible to be from the tribe of Dan and a prince and blah, 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 because he was a president and not, an emperor or whatever. And then I looked at the Pope, and his rank was, maybe, prince of the church maybe, but that's mainly for bishops and stuff, I think. So, and then you look at Erdogan's leader, Tayyip Erdogan. He fits a lot of the bills, but there are some things that don't work right for him. And I've even put up former President Barack Hussein Obama, and it's a stretch to make him an Assyrian. It's a stretch to make Erdogan an Assyrian. It's a stretch to make the Pope an Assyrian. But Bashar al-Assad could be, and also the 6th guy, General Qasem Soleimani of Iran, the leader of the Quds Force military there in Iran. He's a brilliant tactician. If you put his military tactics and ability against young Prince bin Salman, who hates him, and they're at war with each other already, if you put his tactics against bin Salman, I think that Soleimani would come out on top. He's a quiet-spoken, gentle man, but a brilliant tactician, and when he takes his troops to war against whoever they're fighting, General Soleimani goes up to the front, doesn't wear a flak jacket or anything. He's up there with his men on the front line doing the fighting. He's not a behind-the-scenes guy, not leading from behind like somebody else we can remember that in office here. Now, so I've been torn between whether the Saudi initiative is, the MBS is going to be the Antichrist, or General Soleimani. And one of the things that was bothering me was about, in Daniel where it says about the Antichrist, that he is pressed on by, from the south. And I thought, well, what's south of Saudi Arabia? There's nothing, right? Oh, wait a minute. There's Yemen. Who's sponsoring Yemen? Iran. So they got pressed on him from there. If it were Soleimani, he's in Iran, and from the south would be the Saudi prince. Okay, so both of them could technically fit that bill. But then I thought, right, what has just happened in the last 2 weeks? Young Prince bin Salman has announced he's going to build a $500 billion city, with multiple dwellings over in the southwest. Okay, now where he has placed it, for those that aren't aware of it, the mountain of God is the Sinai mountain, which is not in the Sinai Peninsula. It's in Saudi Arabia, right close to the Jordan border. above it.
Yeah.
And he's placing his very luxurious city and smart city and everything at the base of that, stretching all the way down to the Red Sea. And it says in one of the prophecies, I'm just trying to define where I wrote it down here, one of the prophecies that the Antichrist will pitch his luxurious tents between the sea and the holy mountain. And
yes.
this is exactly where this young fella is building Neom. If you look in Daniel 11:45, you'll see it. And it says, "And he shall plant the tabernacles of his palace between the seas in the glorious holy mountain. Yet he shall come to his end, and none shall help him." And that's Mohammed bin Salman. Now, I don't like, as I say this all the time, I don't like using Nostradamus as a prophetic source of accuracy because he divined stuff which was, in my opinion, kind of not, godlike. It was with those kind of things. But I still can't get over the fact that Nostradamus said that the Antichrist, the third one of this age, would be called Mabus. And I have that in my description files there up on this page on my website. Mabus is Mabus. And what do they call Prince Mohammed bin Salman in the press and in the halls of government there? He is always referred to as MBS. Now, he just, in the last 6 months or so, has formed a mighty Arab nation consortium of 41 nations. It's an Arabic Union, AU, MABUS.
Wow.
Now, this has got to make the hair on the back of your neck stand up.
Wow.
So, as I say, I don't like to use Nostradamus as an accurate source, but this is happening. And it's just so, not coincidental, but fulfilling prophecy in a lot of other ways that I have to look at that. But yes, things with him, I watch him. I have several news sources watching him and people that are in the Middle East watching him and passing information back. The fact that he is so close now with Israel, Saudi Arabia has been over, MBS has been over to meet with Netanyahu, and they've got a love fest going because they have a common enemy, Iran. They want Israel to join them against Iran. And in the middle of all this, the Palestinian issues kind of slid to the side. Now, there is one piece of news. I think let me see if I still got it on my website here. One news item where the Saudis are told that they had better ratify that peace treaty, or agree to it, because that will. That's like the covenant that they're talking about. I'm just trying to find which one it is. Yeah, it's an article on my show images page on slide 45. It shows a picture of the old King Solomon and the leader of the Palestinians. And one of the statements they say down here, but Saudi Arabia will face a PR problem if it seeks closer ties with Israel. So it is, the page jumped. So it is ready to endorse any piece of paper. Saudi Arabia is ready to endorse any piece of paper as a legitimate deal to claim that the Palestinian issue is resolved and it's time to move on. Now, isn't that an incredible statement? We're talking about the covenant, the piece of paper, the agreement. So now, and this is it. The Antichrist comes to power with the help of a small people, it says.
Yes.
Small nation, okay? Or a small group of people that are in the nation. If he comes to power using the Palestinian issue, do you see? They're a small group of people.
Yes.
There are so many things that I'm watching about this guy that I try to convince myself. I run through exercises when I'm just doing other things about how could you be wrong? Maybe this is all wrong, that he doesn't fit the bill at all. But his rise to power, his arresting of all those rich family members that are, allegedly in, corruption in the government, and charging him $1 billion to get free and go back home. He is he's reckless, but he's certainly decisive, and he does have a bad temper. They talk about him in the back rooms. You don't want to irritate MBS because heads will roll. And at 32 years of age, this boy has taken over the whole country. I mean, he's not silly.
So this alliance is kind of strange between him, Israel, Netanyahu, and Trump. Are we watching some sort of a triad there that's developing?
Well, yes, because it's an involved thing. But Egypt had a peace treaty with Israel, back in the 1990s, and part of it was how many troops that Egypt would put on the Sinai Peninsula versus Israel to be sure that nobody broke the agreement. And this latest mosque attack, where hundreds were killed there in the Sinai Peninsula, the Egyptians want to put more troops there, so they're making overtures to Israel to balance it so that nobody gets excited with each other and starts shooting, Israel against Egypt or vice versa. And Jared Kushner, Trump's son-in-law, has been over there to Egypt and to Israel and to the Saudis. He's personal friends with MBS. I mean, they get along like a house of fire. And it is a triad type arrangement between the U.S., Saudi Arabia, and Israel at the moment. Now, Kushner he's a very bright fellow, and he's doing the behind-the-scenes work while his father-in-law, the president, President Trump, has gone off doing things that need to be done here. But I would suspect an interesting announcement next week. I think we're going to see something announced over in the Middle East. Could be wrong, but that's the way it's heading.
Yeah. At the same time, we had that the first time unprecedented meeting between Iran, Turkey, and Putin, which they said had never happened before. So I think we're watching the Ezekiel 38-39 alliances really start to form. What do you think?
Oh, I agree. Erdogan, I've been watching him too. He could even be the false prophet, to hail the efforts of the Saudi prince later if he wants to, even though they're technically not on the same side at the moment. But that is the formation. I see it. The Russians, Putin had to come down into the Middle East to get a foot into the area through Syria and with the help of Iran, obviously, but through Syria over into Lebanon, so they had access to a Mediterranean seaport. He was forced to do that, and for oil and things, there were a number of things that just forced him to come down, just like they say the hooks in the jaws to bring him down. Now, here's where the issue is very fluid and dangerous, because bin Salman has broken with thousands of years of tradition of hating Israel and vice versa. Even in when they weren't in the land, they didn't like the Saudis. But anyway, since 1948, there's no question about the attitude between them being animus. Now, all of a sudden, this young fellow comes up and says, we're going to be friends with you, Israel. It goes over, and because we have a common enemy, Iran, then, the enemy of how do they say it? When you got a common enemy, you join together. My enemy is my friend type thing. So, MBS has an alliance of nations, including Turkey. I mean, Turkey's in the alliance with him, right? Even though they might be at odds over the Iranian issue. Turkey's in there, Pakistan's in it, Egypt joins them, Malaysia, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, and a bunch of others. They have all come under the leadership of MBS. He has, with these nations that I've listed, plus more who are contributing things, but these are the leading contributors, he has 2,500 jet fighters, 21,000 tanks, 461 assault helicopters, 44,000 armored vehicles. Pakistan is in it because they're a nuclear country who can supply the nukes to them. Active reserves of 5 million soldiers, active service members of 4 million combat soldiers, and a population of 1 billion people behind him. Now, tell me that guy isn't powerful.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, he's heading over to get Iran. Okay, so suppose he does do it. He's going to have to go up through Jordan or around Jordan up into Syria. And if you know your geography, the Golan Heights is the southern tip of Syria, and it's now occupied by Israel to keep, the Syrians or anybody else in their territory from lobbing missiles down into northern Israel. It only takes a left turn on the road there, not even going up to Damascus. This is just at the Golan Heights, just a little left turn of the troops. And all these people I've just mentioned, all these the consortium under MBS could turn left or west down into northern Israel. They could be there before you could blink an eye. That you wouldn't have time to respond. The ground troops would be there all over the place. So I suspect a double cross is coming where MBS will defeat Iran and Soleimani somehow. And at somewhere around that moment, he'll turn around and go back down and take over Israel too, or try to anyway. Try to. I think he'll be defeated, but with nukes. But as I say, things are very fluid over there at the moment, trying to fit them into prophecy. But boy, are they happening almost by the hour.
Well, that's what makes me wonder if we aren't coming up now. Hanukkah's coming up, and a lot of things can happen on Hanukkah. So I'm curious about Trump, and the rumor is that he is about to approve not only the embassy, but to move the capital to Jerusalem. What would happen if he actually does that here in the next couple weeks?
To move what capital? You're talking about moving the embassy down there or what?
The embassy of Israel over to Jerusalem.
Maybe you said what you
didn't mean. And then make Jerusalem the capital rather than Tel Aviv.
Well,
what would that trigger?
Well, let me tell you. I got a sneak peek from a leak that went over, and Prophecy in the News got it too, from the Middle East. One of the guys over there leaked details of the Saudi-Israeli peace deal and what it involves. And this plays into what you're talking about. It's a secret correspondence that was intercepted between the Saudi Foreign Minister Adel al-Jubeir and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Now, the draft of the possible peace deal between Saudi Arabia and Israel is on the Lebanese website of Al-Akhbar, and that was posted Tuesday this week. Now, there are 5 principles in this new peace deal. One of them is about Jerusalem, the very first point. It says this: the annexation of Jerusalem to international sovereignty as per the 1937 and 47 partition plans, 2 international agreements which have recommended that the city not be annexed to either Arab or Jewish entities but become an international place. And that capital then, they could leave capital in Tel Aviv if they want to, but Jerusalem is going to be an international city and not so much part of Israel.
Oh, I don't think the Lord would like that.
No. And then they talk about, the next point is the Palestinian refugees. It says, Saudi Arabia affirms its aspiration to settle Palestinian refugees in their countries of residence. The kingdom can contribute to this effort by supporting innovative solutions, such as canceling the Arab League's decision from the 1950s, by which no Arab nation is to settle Palestinian refugees within their borders, as well as divert efforts to the redistribution and settlement of Palestinian refugees throughout the Arab states. So they're handling. They can take the Palestinian refugees and bring peace just by bringing them into their nations now, into the Arab nations. So the Antichrist will look like a real hero if he does that. I mean, who could make peace in the Middle East? And this is a solution that might work temporarily. Now, the third point they make is the Arab mediation and agreed upon principles. The United States and Saudi Arabia will reach. Now, remember, this is a draft of a peace treaty that's already floating around the back room. The United States and Saudi Arabia will reach agreements regarding the main principles for ending the conflict, after which President Trump would summon the foreign ministers of the region to a summit in order to obtain their agreements, and only after they've agreed to the same basic principles would the actual negotiations begin. This is the piece of paper we're talking about.
Wow.
The covenant. Now, the fourth part, sorry, go on.
Yes, go on.
The fourth part, the Saudi influence. Saudi Arabia's most effective and important role is to recruit others to support this deal, which will usher in a new era of peace and prosperity between Israel and the Arab and Muslim worlds. At first, normalization of relations with Israel will not enjoy wide public support throughout the Arab world, but Saudi Arabia believes that the combination of Israeli technology and the Gulf states' economic power and energy markets could bring out the Middle East's full potential and obtain peace, prosperity, and stability. That's almost like peace and safety, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Now, last part, Iran. The Israeli-Palestinian conflict is the longest-lasting conflict in the region. Over the years, it has served as a justification for the actions of extremists and has also distracted the major players in the region from focusing on the central threat to its stability, Iran. In accordance with the deal, both Israel and Saudi Arabia must commit themselves to an effective cooperation in order to stop Iran. And, then it goes on there with some more comments about it. You can read this whole thing on my Show Images page by clicking on image 47. And you'll get to the site. You can copy it down and distribute it. Boy, this is mighty stuff.
Well, it's right on time.
Yeah, well,
because when I did the Omega Code, I kept coming to 2017. No matter which way you looked, it was 2017. On November 29th, I believe it is, we are at the, we're by it now, but that was the 70th year from when the UN gave the mandate for Israel. On November 29th, 1947.
A lot of people have said 2017 going into 2018,
Pivot. Yep.
Now, here's another thing that kind of puzzled me was, can Mohammed bin Salman say that he was Assyrian, by birth? Well, if you look at 900 to 603 BC, in that period of time when the Assyrian Empire was at its greatest, it extended all around Syria, down through Israel, down the coast, down to at both sides of the Gulf of Aqaba, down there next to the Red Sea where the Mountain of God is anyway. And it curved down the west coast of Saudi Arabia along the what's called the east coast of the Red Sea. And it went as far down as Jeddah. Where was Mohammed bin Salman born? Jeddah. His name, the family name Salman, comes from the ancient king who formed Assyria, from Shalmaneser the Great. Their name is taken, Salman, the family Salman, their name is taken from that. So it's like he's called a Solomon. He has the power, he has the money, it just
he has
keeps
the
on
hatred.
adding up.
He has it all. Larry, any questions?
I had one question I wanted to ask Stan how this might fit in, and I'm wondering about Isaiah 17 maybe before long, because there's a new report out the last couple of days that Putin has made a deal with El-Sisi in Egypt for Russia to use Egyptian airspace, and also El-Sisi is going to allow Russia to base their bombers and naval forces out of Egypt. And so where does this click in?
It might be that Russia is covering its bases because Iran, with 41 Arab nations mounting together to destroy Iran out of fear. They want to get rid of them because Iran's a big threat to them because the Shiite Islamic function is basically centered there in Iran. And so there's going to be a great effort to destroy them. And certainly if Mohammed bin Salman does that, it will ruin things in Syria for Russia for a while. So Russia needs an alternate seaport. And so at least getting the airspace over Egypt gives them access to strategic resources in the area when the shooting starts, and it will start.
So they know this is going to happen, and that's probably why they're doing it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're way ahead of us. I mean, what we see in the press and little leaks we get are way behind the actual issue, let's face it. Lord. Yeah. We get up every morning and run to the TV and to the computers and say, okay, what's happening?
What's happening?
Yeah. You can expect oil prices to double, too, pretty soon. As soon as the conflict starts over there, oil prices will probably jump, probably double.
Wow. Well, I guess we all knew this was coming. We just weren't sure when. I've always thought that 2017, 2018 were the key pivot years. And if they're not, and this thing continues, then we're probably, 10, 20 years away yet. But I just don't see how that can be.
Too. I thought about that, too, but I just don't see how the Middle East situation can go that long without an eruption. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but, it just seems like with the nuclear factors involved, that something's going to explode long before 20 years goes by.
Yeah. at the same time all of this is going on, of course, we now have it sounds to me, I want your take on this, and Larry's take too, on this Flynn deal. This sounds to me like they're going to try to impeach Trump or get rid of him through Flynn, maybe? What do you think?
It does look like it, doesn't it?
Well, I had a very weird dream, and I'm not going to tell anybody it came from the Lord. It's probably my overactive imagination, but it happened today.
Right.
I was sitting in a seat, and I kind of fell asleep. And in the dream, I met Trump. And what I said to Trump was, the Lord has told me to tell you, you've got to move the embassy, and the capital has to become Jerusalem now. Now, I don't know why I would dream anything like that, but it makes me wonder, with the announcement that he said he was toying with that idea. So I was wondering, would that start a war, though, do you think?
Oh, there are so many factions with power and vested interest in the region. I don't know. If he were to move the U.S. Embassy down to Jerusalem, and if they were to make Jerusalem the capital of not only Israel, but and then make it an international city, I don't know about the legal implications of that, because if it's a city that will belong to the world in essence, but still be the capital of Israel, maybe it won't be divided from Israel per se, but it won't be, it sounds like it won't be Israeli territory, which sounds to me like a dividing of the land, but I don't know who that's going to irritate the most, but I'm sure that it won't be happy times. And here's another thing. That's another thing. Have you been following the research of the digs over in the southeast corner of the Temple Plateau there, the Temple Mount?
Yes.
I know they've been going deeper and deeper.
But you know what they're looking for, don't you?
Probably the Ark.
They are looking for Solomon's Temple. It's not up on the Temple Mount, never was. That was a Roman
encampment. That's what they're looking for.
Look, you can see the rubble pile there even on Google Earth if you go to that southeast corner of the Temple Mount and down the walls on the outside, you'll see rubble there. They have found the city of David now, which is down from there just a little bit on the edge of an escarpment, and they have found the river that supplies the water for the whole region. It's like, what do you call it, an underground type aquifer, or
right.
It flows. And it flows right where the temple had to be for the religious ceremonies and the cleansing and all that kind of stuff for the holy days. Solomon's temple was tiny by comparison to the temple that, what's his name? Anyway, the second temple.
Harold?
Built there. Herod's temple, yeah. My mind is gone. There's so many things happening at the moment. Anyway, but Solomon's temple is tiny, and strangely enough, the blueprint, the way it was organized, laid out inside for Solomon's temple to God, is the same floor plan as was found up in Syria for one of their ancient gods. You can still see the foundation laid out there, the entry port, and where the Holy of Holies was. It's almost the same kind of floor plan that Solomon used in his, but it's a small floor plan. And finding that means once they prove it, and they've already found the tower there that was by the between the city of David and the Temple of Solomon. Once they have proved that, then the Israelis can rebuild the temple on that spot without irritating anybody.
Wow!
I mean, this is just wow! Wow! Incredible thing.
Yeah. Larry, got anything else?
I was just going to mention I'd seen some data recently, and Richard Shaw shared some information not long back about some really incredible digs that are really revealing stuff that they're trying to keep secret for the moment, the antiquities there. This is going on.
Yeah. Look, I mean, they've been trying to prove that David and King Solomon, his son, the archaeologists all over the world have been trying to prove that they even existed because they couldn't find evidence. They'd been wiped out so much. Then there was a little stela found up in Lebanon somewhere, I think it was, recently, that had the name of David, King David, by one of the kings up there mentioning some deal he had with him. and that was the only mention they found in the surrounding area of this King David. But to be able to dig down, see, they haven't even really found David's tomb. They've got they've got what they call David's tomb, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the original is still lost, and we think it's down underneath all that rubble, because as Jesus said, the Romans would come and not one stone would be left on another of the temple. And if they destroyed that, I'm sure they destroyed the city of David as well. And all you see in that area, if you go in there and look at close-up photos in the southeast corner, you know, off of the Temple Mount, it's in an area called Ophel, O-F-E-L. And in there you see stones, just it's a stone graveyard. You know, they're just all over the place, and they're on top of whatever's underneath. So raising them up and getting underneath it, they are finding evidence that that was the original temple site for King Solomon. And
again, right on time.
Yeah. Even Erdogan of Turkey, you know, has said to the press over in his country and hence to the Israelis, well, it wouldn't be bad, I guess, to let the Jews have their worship place and build their little, you know, Temple of Solomon. You know, to be fair, he said. So they're even already making allowances for Israel building their temple somewhere and allowing them to practice Judaic worship there next to the Muslims. So, wow.
Yeah, and the Sanhedrin is alive and well again. So
yeah,
it's all coming together, isn't it?
And they've been training young Israeli men to be priests of the temple. That's not a rabbi. This is priests. They've been training them in the acts they need to do to be ritually pure and how to perform all the sacrificial acts and everything that they did at the time of Solomon. And so they're getting ready. They got the staff. They're looking for the red heifer right now. That has no white hair on it. The heifer is totally red, not one white hair. That one will be part of the sacrifice for the temple, which is used, to the ash would have, for the forgiveness of sins and to covering them, with the scapegoat and that kind of stuff.
And that's an absolute. They have to have that, I think, if they want to perform their rituals, right?
Yep. And the temple incense had to be made from certain plants that don't even exist anymore. And so several hundred pounds of that incense were discovered by my friend Dr. Jones, or Venable Jones out of Texas. He found it in an underground cave of a cave at the Wadi Haqiqah. I swung in by a rope and down a ladder and stuff and looked at it and saw what was in there. And in the floor of that, they found several hundred pounds of that incense that they need for the new temple. So even though the plants don't exist, they've got the incense from thousands of years ago.
Wow. Yep, all coming together. Getting back to Saudi Arabia and that kind of their Area 51 and the possible UFO alien connection.
Yep.
How do you think that fits in with Antarctica? And the reason I bring it up is that the bots said that Antarctica was going to come into a year of upheaval, and I noticed you put out a thing about the Earth and slowing rotation and whatnot. Would that cause them, if they're down there, to move? And where would they move to? Where would they invade?
Well, Daniel answered that. He said that the alien god that the Antichrist would honor, not worship, but would honor, in return for weapons and technology that will be given to him by the alien god, the Antichrist will give them lands and people. So somewhere on the planet, he is going to allocate countries, regions, and peoples occupying it under the control of the aliens to go ahead and settle their people there. So yes, you're right. They could force them to move. If they're not already moved. I mean, I've seen evidence of things moving big ships in the air, for a couple of years now.
Yeah. So this expanding Earth, which I firmly believe in, and the slowing rotation. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, the Sorcher Fall people, whoever they are, made mention that the Russian scientists, felt that the North American plate was going to start breaking up. Are we watching that about right now, do you think?
Well, the beginning of it, if you look on my show images page at image 55, the top firstmost image, I have a map I made showing where the under United States craton support, the pillar support for America is. And you'll see in that the stable foundation for the United States is in dark blue and shades of blue. And the areas in green and yellow and stuff are unstable areas for earthquake. Now, I've drawn two sets of lines, red lines outlining. Okay, well, inside those lines, in the blue areas, that's the stable part. Outside of them, or in between those lines and outside of them on the west coast, are all unstable areas. And surprise, surprise, the USGS plot of fault lines and of seismic areas of interest fall within all those areas. They're not in the blue areas, are they?
No.
So, I used a craton map and some other data that's very hard to get a hold of to put underneath this map so I could draw the lines to show where it went. Wow. With the slowing of the Earth, and all the planets, all the stars, all the galaxies slow down. They're in entropy at the moment. They're winding down. They're slowing down. Yes. And it's just a natural progress of it all. Now, it can be accelerated in certain instances by solar flares, coronal mass ejections, magnetic field disturbances, nearby huge asteroid passes that disturb the orbit. Any of these kind of things can put the brakes on the spin of the Earth. And I got to back up here again. The shell of the Earth, the thin surface of it, the top part of the mantle, is very flimsy. It's like a soap bubble. It's just flimsy. It shakes a lot when earthquakes happen, and when bombs go off, nuclear bombs, it shakes and rattles. And when they crashed one of the lunar satellites into the surface of the moon after the mission was completed 3 or 4 years back, the moon rang like a hollow bell for 30 minutes from the impact of that small little satellite. So things can have hollow spaces in them. We have that in our planet, at least one empty space where gravity actually reverses and goes to zero down inside the Earth before it reaches the core, all due to the mechanisms of gravity. It's like a fluid flow in space. The surface of the Earth used to be very slippery. It had a very viscous, molten, ball-bearing, if you wish, layer between it and the rest of the planet, so that if you breathed heavy in astronomical terms on the surface of the Earth, the surface would spin around, but leave the core of the planet where it was. So it didn't take much energy. And so when we had 5 or 6 of these large asteroids that made holes or craters that were like 250 miles in diameter in the early days of the Earth, they spun the Earth upside down, the surface of it. And that's why I was able to find Atlantis, because all the directions people were using from what Plato got from Solon over in Egypt, what they were saying was that the Pillars of Hercules were west of Greece. And so if you look west, well, you think today's west was what they were talking about. But the Egyptian record said that the sun has risen in the east twice and in the west twice in history at the time of the... Okay, so we were upside down at the time of Atlantis. The great meteor struck that caused the flood and destroyed all the hybrid beings that God hated in Genesis 6. And when it did that, it flipped the planet up to its position now of 23.5 degrees off true north. The original North Pole is up close to where Iceland is today. So you can see that in the mud maps. I mean, you can track back where the North Pole used to be.
Where do you think the first big quake will strike? You know, I read an article where it said 2018 is going to really be a year of bad quakes.
Well, I don't know order of them. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, but I would say that one of the very prone areas to massive earthquakes is our west coast, the San Andreas, and all the parallel faults that run along with it, and then the Juan de Fuca plate up off the Oregon and Washington coast. That area is prone for a Richter 9+ earthquake. It's been overdue for about 5 or 6 years now by statistical estimates. the rest of the Pacific Ring of Fire, Arc of Fire, all the way over into Indonesia. All the areas that had built up that kind of pressure for earthquakes have already converted and made earthquakes, and volcanoes have occurred and that kind of stuff. But our side of the Pacific hasn't reacted yet, but the pressure is building up, and everybody's holding their breath, at a government level, saying, can we take care of the people when it happens? And the answer is no. Which is why preparation and moving out of these areas is probably fairly clever at the moment.
That's a good way to word it. What's your take on this New Zealand Rapapo? Is that how they call that? You had a vision about that, didn't you?
Oh yeah. Actually, it was about Ruape was one of three volcanoes that surround what's called Lake Taupo. Now, the natives, the Maori people, say that Lake Taupo, which is big in the middle of the North Island, is actually used to be called the Taupo Sea, because it must have somehow or another connected to the ocean. Now, the vision I had, in fact, I had two of them, which were just absolutely extraordinary, but it showed me the outline of Lake Taupo, and that there would be a morning, and there was a motel I saw in the dream that had Spanish style or Mexican style architecture and stuff, and that it was on the north side of Lake Taupo, and I came walking in the building in my dream vision, and I saw to my left the reception area, the desk, and then I saw to my right, down a few more steps, a hallway to the right, and I turned down it, and I went down two doors. I think it was two, might have been three, but anyway, 2 or 3 doors, and I went through the door, and as I opened it, I saw like a restaurant, which had a view of Lake Taupo, but the staff were sitting on the bar and on tables because the water had started to rise, and it was hot, steamy water.
Oh.
Yeah. I'd never heard of this place. I'd never heard of Lake Taupo. I'd never heard of any of that stuff. A lady came to buy a book from Holly and I when we were over in Perth at home, and we were talking to her about this strange dream vision I had. She was a Christian lady. She said, "Oh, that's Lake Taupo over in New Zealand." I said, "Really?" So we had to leave the country every so many months for Holly's citizenship things there. So we decided we'd take that leave, and I had to make a lecture over there. We'd go over and spend some time in New Zealand and see this Lake Taupo thing. We got to the edge of the city of Taupo by the lake. It was late in the afternoon, and Holly said, "Now stop the car here. Tell me again what you saw in your vision about the motel where it was and all this kind of stuff." And so I told her again. We drove. There's only one road around that Lake Taupo on the north side. We drove down that road maybe 2 miles, and suddenly we came upon exactly what I saw in my dream vision. Exactly, the hotel there. It's still there today, and I walked in the front door, and there to the left was the desk. And in my dream vision, I had seen one of the women wearing a hot glove trying to open up a hot safe on the floor. So I asked the woman, "Do you have a safe on the floor?" "Yes." I said, "Do you have trouble opening it from time?" She said, "Yes, it gets very hot." Aha. So I walked down a couple more steps to that hallway, and I go down there, and there is this, I forget the name of the restaurant, but there's the restaurant with the tables and chairs and everything looking out over Lake Taupo, just like I saw. And up to the left, down the coast, just a few miles, were yachts that were parked that I saw in my dream vision, too. Private yachts of people, small wind sailors, they were still parked there. And, the girl there at the desk, we talked to her a bit longer, and I said, "Is it unusual for your floor to be hot?" She says, "Well, it comes and goes." She says, "We've had guests in here down at the far end of the hotel that have called and complained to turn the heat down in the room. And, of course, it's from the heat from the volcanic formation way under Lake Taupo. It originally erupted in about 240 A.D. last time, and it was a huge eruption which formed Lake Taupo. And the water of Lake Taupo is what's holding the lid on the volcano underneath it. It's a caldera, like Yellowstone. So I saw that it would be a very strange type of eruption in that the first thing would happen, the water would get hot, and then the whole Lake Taupo would sink, just suddenly reverse and sink down in, and then that was after that would be when the big rocks and the huge eruption occurred. And that's like a steam, steam reaction to make a very explosive volcano. Anyway, the water would leak down into the hot magma pools and form this explosive bomb, in essence, that would wipe out a huge portion. So, yeah, I watch Ruapeo and I watch White Island, which is up on the north part of the island from there, because it's what they call the zipper of all the volcanoes and earthquakes that are going to come down through the middle of North Island to affect Lake Taupo. So when White Island starts to erupt, it's a volcano, and it's come and gone a couple times. But when that happens, you can kind of hold your breath for the rest of the North Island.
What now is that tied into something about the Three Gorges Dam? If I remember, was that an elderly lady?
Yeah, there was a Maori kahuna, a wise woman, a teacher of the Maori, who was told of my dream vision, and she had another friend of ours contact me and say, look, we know this is going to happen, but before it erupts, there will be a scandal, and I believe it was China. I'd have to read my notes again, but there will be a scandal, and a dam will burst, and it will be over substandard wood being used by crooks that were stealing money from the project. And this dam will cause a big disaster. When that happens, expect Lake Taupo to erupt. So it could be the Three Gorges Dam and some of the tributary dams that somebody, cheated like that. So that kind of a scandal will be worldwide news. It won't be local. And, so yeah. I think I have some mention of that on the website. Let's see, go to the website, go to Dream Visions at the top of the page. Three Gorges Dam, China, and Lake Taupo is second Dream Vision. And in 1997 as well. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, you can go and read the thing detail for that there. But
okay, we got about 4 minutes. Larry, got any questions you want to make or comments?
Well, I was just going to mention to Stan. There've been a lot of reports coming out about Antarctica the last few months. Have you heard anything, Stan, about military activity or operations involving some type of alien creatures in that region under where it's melted out because of volcanic activity?
I have heard probably the same rumors you have. I don't have any further proof or facts about that. It doesn't surprise me in that when the fallen ones settled the earth, and started breeding with man in contrast to God's law. When they did that, they had at least 12 settlements across the whole earth. And they could, because the South Pole wasn't always the South Pole, it was a landmass, they could very well, one of the 12 could have settled there with advanced technology, and when the asteroid impact occurred and spun the planet around and turned that into the North Pole, or South Pole, that it could have quick frozen anyone living there. And since it's all covered in ice, it's been impossible for us to excavate. Now, I have heard rumors of teams using steam pipes like they use in Siberia to melt the tundra to get the tusks out of the old mammoths. They're using these steam pipes to melt a civilization or a city they found down in Antarctica. I don't know if that's true. It would, it would be probably full of dead people, all frozen, but they were the relatives of Satan's minions that are coming back now. And
do you think the arrival's going to be really soon? I do. I just have that feeling.
Okay, yeah. I think it'll come at a time when we have a world economy collapse, panic over that, at a time when we're threatened with global nuclear war. We're threatened on the edge of that. At a time when we have a pandemic, we've got plague starting, pneumonic plague that you can catch by breath, now starting to hit certain areas, and if it's not stopped, it will go worldwide suddenly. With the plague. You've got troubles with the sun, which is, going to make people wish there was some way to do it. You've got trouble with asteroids that are flying that may have intersect paths with us in the next 10 years. So all these crisis curves coming at once is going to make the people, not the government so much, but the people of Earth say, will someone help us? Oh, you're from an alien world, new technology. Oh, great. Can you help us? What do you want? Where do we sign? It's the offer you can't refuse.
Okay, well, thanks an awful lot for coming on, Stan. We're going to have you back. And thanks, Larry, for coming on. We only got about 5 seconds left. But thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next week sometime. Good night, everyone.
Good night.